got Jesse Kazmer here with us today, and the special thing about this interview is I've been following this guy's music for well over 20 years. My brother has been very adamant to archive a bunch of his early stuff, but as of October 22nd, 2023, he came back. He's been doing a bunch of projects and he came back with this new project called Temple of the Diagonal, and they have their debut album, Deviations. We'll get into all of that. Before anything, welcome, Jesse Kazmer. Thank you for
Yeah, man.
being here.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you. I'm glad to be here. That's awesome. You guys checked out the album, and we're excited about it. I think you guys found it a little earlier than we planned to. You guys kind of stumbled onto it in the streaming before we were ready to start letting it out there, but that's cool.
Yeah, and I'm grateful, man. And so we've been talking off screen about how I discovered you originally. It was in the early 2000s through a Mugen forum, and you had your music as part of this game, Twisted Fate, that your
Yeah,
brother Chris worked on. And
yeah.
you had this track Silver Brain, and I remember that like
Uh,
that was the jam. So how did you guys get involved with getting that going?
well, with the video game, I mean, that was all my brother Chris. He started that a long time ago, and yeah, he needed some backing tracks for music and stuff, and I had my band going at the same time too, so he used all that. Yeah, yeah, and then actually, Silver Brain is kind of funny because Silver Brain was had a sister song called Upgrade, which we ended up putting on Deviations. They're both kind of sci-fi, like robot kind of themed tracks. Actually, Silver Brain was like, "Hey, the robots are coming. They're gonna, change the world. They're taking over everything." And then Upgrade was the answer to that. It was like, "Hey, make us cyborgs. Let's do this. Like, let's change our bodies around too and take it to that next level."
It's really interesting you mentioned that because I actually notice a lot of allusions to Complex when I listen to this album. Like several of the tracks like have like callbacks to like the
Yeah,
orientation demo that you guys put out back then.
yeah, yeah. I think there's about four tracks on there that we've done in the past, or at least are some sort of a rebuilding of it. Um, Bones of Adam is probably the one that you'd be familiar with. That's going to be like the final track on Deviations, and that song used to be called Hypothesis. That song goes back.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that
I
one.
don't know. Yeah, yeah, that song goes back to like we were teenagers or something, and we did that, and then we did that with a band called Puzzle, and then we re-recorded it and rewrote it with a different band called Complex, which is what you're referring to with the Orientation EP, and then we brought it back again. And I think we're done with it now. I think we did everything that we wanted to, and we made it a good song. So that was one of those
Nice.
tracks we always felt like it had cool parts to it, but it's not good enough, and so we always just kind of kept working on it.
You talk about the past and you bring up references to your past music and putting that all together. I wanted to know when you were a kid, when you were growing up, what was your musical environment like, and how did that inspire your musicianship?
And I remember being probably like 5 or 6 years old. My parents would have their friends over on a Friday night, and they'd all sit around the table and play cards and have drinks and listen to records and things. And they all, everybody had kids, and all the kids would get put to bed, but I'd be able to stay up because I was kind of the oldest, and if I was good, I could stay in the other room if I was quiet. So I lay in a couch in the next room over in the dark, and I would just listen to the music. I mean, I remember them playing Pink Floyd and the Doors and a bunch of like classic rock albums and stuff. And that was the first I remember like actually thinking about music. I'm 6 years old. How deep did I go? I don't know, but that's when I first started. I first noticed it. But then later on, when I became a teenager, I guess the first heavy stuff I started getting into was like Metallica and Guns N' Roses. I was listening to the hair metal stuff. Then later on, grunge came around. I got into that. Alice in Chains. There was all kinds of wacky stuff out there. Primus and Ween, and then Rage Against the Machine came around. And Tool and
Yeah.
new metal. It just snowballed. As time
So
went on.
you took it all in. You didn't discriminate against anything.
I mean, I had stuff that I liked and stuff that I wanted to stay away from, I suppose. But yeah, the stuff I liked, I took it in, I took it seriously, and I cared about it, so it stuck.
And when it comes to your early bands, you did mention Puzzle. How did Puzzle come about?
Puzzle, yeah, Puzzle was when we were teenagers. That was my first band. There was I was the oldest. I was probably like 18, but everybody else was like 15 or 16, and it was just dudes from school. That most of them were my brother's friends actually, and that's kind of I met them through him, and we just started it up, and it was fun, and we just kind of kept going. In fact, the keyboard player from that is the guy that the two of us made this Deviations album together. We've been in 3 bands now, and this is our fourth musical endeavor here. Just
Oh,
the two of
wow.
us on this. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so Al Rossman was also in Complex with you, right?
Yep. Yeah, he was in Puzzle and Complex. There was another band that never really got off the ground called Paperwork. It was Complex with a different guitar player. Um, Complex broke up, and then about I think it was 8 years later, we all regrouped and tried it again. And it didn't really go anywhere, but we did write some good music, and Pilgrim and Dark Matter were actually songs that are on Deviations that we wrote in that band. So those songs are a couple years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And with Complex, you actually set up shows in Peabody's and the Fantasy and the Flying
Yeah.
Machine. You had your own like kind of self promotion kind of thing going on where all the bands, it was like this big community. There are some bands that both my brother and I have recognized just from seeing those flyers. And what was the scene like as you were getting going?
Um, Cleveland was great for metal. If there was a downside, it was probably like oversaturated. There was hundreds of bands in metal, like tons and tons. Every time we played a show, we'd play with 6 or 7 other bands, and maybe 1 or 2 of them we'd heard before or had played with, and the other 5 were just names we never heard of. And it was always like that. So there was always a ton of bands. It was probably a little difficult to stand out because of that fact. But there was another big band here that kind of had their own family and following, and we kind of wanted to compete with them. So that's what we were always trying to do, was build up our little group and have our 4 or 5 bands that we always stick with and play and put together big shows and kind of get things rolling in that way.
Was it kind of like a stark kind of rivalry, or was it kind of friendly competition?
Um, I think it was it was more nasty than anything.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, everybody was kind of competing, and there was a lot of kind of trash talking and fighting, and everybody wants to kind of be the big dog. So yeah, it was a little nasty. We weren't competing directly with anyone in particular, but I just remember it being pretty cutthroat. It was tough. Yeah.
Oh man. Even so, I mean, you did what you could to, establish yourself. What you did, you had Crop Duster promotions, which
Oh
you
wow,
with yeah, I saw through
done
the
some research
archives. Yeah,
there.
through the archives, I've seen the old page, and you help, as far as I can see, you've helped like different bands with promotion and cover design, and it really speaks to what you're doing now, especially with this cover of
Yeah,
Temple the Diagonal. So, like,
yeah.
did you originally go to school for that, or was it just one of your natural proclivities or anything?
I probably learned Photoshop more than anything from my brother, Chris. Again,
Oh wow.
he, yeah, the first complex little EP that we did, it was like a 4 song demo, and he did the cover art for that. But I kind of sat with them, and I was like, I want it to look like this, and I just kind of walked him through how I wanted it to be and everything, and he was teaching me how it works as we went along. So that's where I learned how to do that stuff for sure from Chris.
Oh, that's really cool. And
Yeah,
with complex, of course, you had orientation, and it was really the logo to like how you presented yourself on stage was like extremely like thought out one way or another. I mean,
thank you.
did a lot go into it, like as far as
Yeah,
really wanting to this band to be distinctive?
yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, me and Al in particular, he's responsible for a lot of the art as well. He kind of ran a lot of stuff with the live show. We had projectors behind us with kind of movies that he would put together that were
Yeah,
playing. He had lights that programmed along with the music, which I think a lot of people have now, but back in 2005, that it wasn't real common, at least at our level. So that helped us stand out a lot. But yeah, I mean, we always thought about that stuff. I growing up, I always looked at album covers, and that's how you'd pick out something you wanted to try. If you didn't know what it was, you're at a record store or something. If the album cover looked cool, or the band logo looked cool, or the name was cool, you were more inclined to try it. So I always wanted to do stuff like that, and I always liked having cool album covers and posters and things
yeah.
like that. When I was 17 years old, laying on my bed in my bedroom, I had all kinds of stuff on the wall, and that stuff just seeped into me because you're staring at it while you're laying there mad about school, or while you're talking to your girlfriend or your friend or whatever, and you're just wandering around the room kind of looking at everything, and it soaks in. And I wanted our stuff to do that for somebody someday too.
That's really cool. And even with like your various projects, I mean, you have it, everyone has stuck out in its own way. I remember when um, my brother and I still quote this to this day, but regarding Complex, I think it was in 2004, your site said Complex is currently marinating and stewing in its own juices. Was
Yeah.
that meant to be like a hiatus, or did you know where you were going at the time as far as continuing that band, or were you like planning to like break up for good?
Yeah, I think that probably was like kind of a rebuilding phase. We saw something coming. I remember we had like a couple changes in the lineup, and we kind of lost our space that we practiced in. We had this amazing. It was like a greenhouse. It was the guitar player's family owned this greenhouse, and it was a whole facility. So I mean, we had a big giant practice room in it, and we had our own loading dock for when we wanted to, when we were going to play shows. We had all kinds of, we always had friends over. There was zip lines set up in there, and you could park your car. It was awesome. And then we kind of went down to a garage. We lost the greenhouse for whatever reason, so we were just kind of in tough times, and we weren't really sure what was going to happen. I mean, I don't think we were when I put that stuff on the website. I definitely was planning on coming back again, but yeah, it just didn't pan out that way. Things started happening. I think one guy had a kid, another guy was getting serious with his girlfriend, and I started doing solo work. I was kind of trying some different things on the side. Another guy got a job interview out in California and moved away. So it was just one of those things. It just couldn't keep going anymore.
Essentially, life just took over, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And speaking of your own projects, you did Vessel Decimal,
Hmm.
and and that was it was cool because my brother and I we saw the series that you had, Jargus Algorithm, that has,
Wow.
yeah, it has a bunch of complex music as sort of like the interludes, and
Yeah. The theme
like,
song and closing and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I was wondering, like, do you intentionally like create characters, like no matter what you're doing, whether it's like a creative thing like the Jargus algorithm show, or
Yeah.
whatever like music you're involved in?
I do think that that's part of it. It's kind of fun for me. I got a big catalog of side projects that I've done since Vessel Decimal, and a lot of it does have some character stuff in there. There's the first thing I did after Vessel Decimal. Vessel Decimal, the last album I did, real quick, was like a triple album. It was
Yeah, yeah.
36 songs or something. It was crazy. It took me
The,
about
the
2 years.
conversion trilogy, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know your stuff, yeah. But that was all. I'm very proud of it, but it was a huge undertaking. So when that was done, I wanted to keep making music and I wanted to try some different stuff, but I needed to do something that was just simpler and fun and kind of short and easy, a little fun run. So I did something called Evil Twin, where it's about twin boys that live in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia, and they sing about their life living in the mountains, and that's me, of course, and I'm playing Mountain Brothers, and there's a ghost in their barn, and there's a crazy animal that lives out in the woods, and there's all this lore that I built up around it, and I'm kind of doing accents with it and stuff when I'm singing, and yeah, that was one thing. I did another one called Devil Stink Bait,
Yeah,
which
yeah, I
is
remember that one.
okay. Yeah, that was the last one I did. I did that I think last year. That I just wanted to do like sludge music and like real slow southern, like nasty, grungy stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it was really grungy. I noticed that it kind of reminded me of like something if you're like late at night and you turn on like 120 minutes, you would
Okay.
hear that. It's like very lo-fi, very like very raw.
But
I
I was
like that.
watching, yeah. So like for subject matter with that though, going back to the character thing, I mean, I was watching that show Swamp People, which
Yeah.
is about alligator hunting in Louisiana, and I don't know anything about that, but I learned about it by watching the show, and I built that all into the lore of Devil Stink Bait. That whole album's about alligator hunting, and it's all it's a metaphor, but I made it. I got into it. So yeah, doing the characters and everything is, I guess is something that I do. I like it. It's fun. It makes it more interesting, I think.
In general, with all these side projects that you've done, what inspires you to stay creative and like maintain that joy for just creating in general?
I guess it's just who I am. I like it. It's fun for me. I would just want to keep doing it. I usually get an idea and I just run with it. I'm the type of person, I get excited about something and I just go all in, and I'll read about it and I'll watch videos about things and I learn about it and I spend money on this and that, and I just dive right into it. So music is perfect for that because I'm at the point now where the technology's there. I can just do all this stuff on my own. Anytime I get an idea, I just walk into my production room here and sit down and open up a session and just kind of start working on it.
That's awesome, man. And it's great that you have a bunch of, projects like in the woodwork. You just keep going with it. That's admirable.
Thank you.
And so let's talk about the new album that you have now, Temple of the Diagonal
Yeah,
Deviations. At what point would you say that the concept for Temple of the Diagonal and this album really took shape?
that's a good question. Me and Al go back and forth a lot on ideas, and I lived in Arizona for about 7 years. I just moved back to Ohio this year, but the whole time I was out there, me and him, kept in contact, and we'd always kind of just bounce ideas off each other. And a lot of it just kind of comes with humor. We'll start screwing around and making up dumb ideas. Hey, what if we had a song about candy? And then we start laughing about it and joke about it, and we start making ideas about a song about candy. And we actually made a song called Candy Fight, which is pretty funny. I don't think it's really out there, but I'll show you someday. But that's kind of how it goes. And then sooner or later we will stumble on something serious, and then we'll kind of take it and run with it. But with this one, we noticed right off the bat that we had a lot of things in common with the songs, where there's this time line involved. There's a pilgrim song. There's a song about like the Black Plague and the Dark Ages, and then there's like stuff in the future. So we kind of built it on this thing where it's just it's a timeline. And there's a lot of little Easter eggs and interesting stuff in there. There's actually a time reset in there that you might figure out if you kind of you get into it a little bit. But um, yeah, we just build it up by talking back and forth and bouncing ideas off each other. It always just comes from the ideas, and then you just bring them to life.
Nice. Now, like, it has four distinct sections. The
Yeah,
tracks one and two are the Know Thyself
right.
section, and then um, tracks 3 through 6 are the Trials, and then um, Descent from the Dominant is tracks 7 and 8, and then the Departure is tracks 9 through 12. And if you can summarize as best you can, what is this concept about, and how does it resonate with you personally?
Yeah. Well, I think we want to leave a little bit of it kind of open for interpretation for
Yeah.
people to kind of get into. But um, yeah, it's kind of like a growth. It's a growth process, I suppose. Like let's see, in the beginning, we're talking about just like kind of coming into existence. I was thinking about God just
Yeah.
appearing in existence, and the first thoughts that would go through the mind of God, the first living creature in the existence. I don't know
Yeah.
where we think of God is, but I thought of that for that first song. So we started back as far as we could, and then House of the Slanted is what it means, what Temple of the Diagonal means, basically. Temple of the Diagonal, House of the Slanted, they kind of are the same thing. So that kind of explains, just what we're all about, basically. The Trials is different examples of hardships that you go through in life and things that kind of affect you and how it affects you, and different issues and problems that we all kind of carry around and how we handle them. The Descent from the Dominant, that section is more about let's see, like rejecting the rules, and kind of not accepting things the way they are, for good or bad, almost. For not, it's not even like a positive thing necessarily, where like you get to the point where you're just like, I don't agree with any of this thing. I want my own universe. I want my own world, and that's not realistic. So now you start going down this weird path, and in the end, there's some loneliness there, and on Dark Matters, really about solitude, and then Bones of Adam is the aliens just come in and they just hate us and they just wipe us out, and fresh start, basically.
Oh, okay. So all of that is that's kind of like what I um garnered from it. It's you you come into existence, and then you go through these trials and tribulations of you know all this confusion and all this kind of exploring yourself, but then finding, like you said, finding things that you're at odds with. And as far as the rejection, like that, it's um it's like seeing yourself as the odd one out, but then also seeing everyone else as kind of strangers to you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think Upgrade is a lot about that too. Upgrade's a pretty dark song that's just kind of like there's a lot of like fear of dying in it and just desperation to do anything you can to kind of keep this life going and panic and just a lot of confusion, not understanding like what's going on and kind of making like strange decisions. Um,
Upgrade is interesting because it's like um you have this freedom, but again, it's like that kind of saccharine freedom where it's like rest and relaxation, but deep, 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 deep down, you're agitated and you want some control over it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And when we put this album together too, I mean, I think another point of inspiration was that we want to make something that means something to people. I mean, when I was growing up, hey, like the Downward Spiral, like that album is just in my bones. That's in my DNA.
Right.
Antichrist Superstar, Tool, Enema. A lot of these. They're not all necessarily concept albums, but just strong, solid albums that do have a pretty strong theme to them and everything. I mean, that's kind of what we were looking for with this as well.
Yeah, and then of course the departure is the inevitable, the wiping out.
Yeah.
You did a creative twist too by, saying like, "Oh, we're just massacred by aliens." That becomes the thing. And the thing also that I like to imagine is like when I look at, you probably have done this too at some point in your life, when you look at an album cover, like this one,
Mhm.
it's like you imagine like the album, you close your eyes and you imagine the album being put in the universe of the cover art. It's almost like its own little world.
Cool. That's what I was
All
shooting
the
for.
all
That's
the
great.
colors, all of
Uh,
what's there, it's like it's all like very, very intricate, very immaculate. It's like the Jimmy Jam
awesome.
and Terry Lewis of album design.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's the biggest like package that I've ever put together too. By the way, like that booklet is pretty big, and like with the trifold and everything, we want to make
I
something.
even saw your unboxing video that you put out, and you're like the community college professor, and this is the unboxing video, and like you got the community college professor down pat, like down to every.
Thanks.
It's like Robin Williams and Good Will Hunting. That's who I thought of.
I did that. I did a video like that with that same character like 10 years ago.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't even remember. I don't even remember what the heck I did it for, but I remember I just turned on the camera and I was just ripping. I was in front of the camera for like a half an hour, just spewing stuff, and it just got funnier and funnier, and I cut it all up, and it's like a 10-minute video or something. But yeah, it's
And
fun.
so you work with Al as far as the concept and
Yeah.
the production. Now, what can you say about his production and your, I guess, the collaborative efforts that you kept up until this point that really sticks out to you, that really resonates with you? What about your bond that what is it about the bond that you two share that still resonates with you to this day?
Yeah, we got a lot of things in common. I think we both just, kind of have a similar sense of humor. We both kind of like the same things. We want the same output. We want the same outcome, and we got a good relationship as far as like the working on this. I mean, with the way this worked out, I kind of did like the front half of everything. Like I did a lot of the writing. I did the drums, the guitars, the bass. I did the singing, and then he took everything from there and he finished it all up. He added all the keys and the synths, and he did the mixing and the mastering and the production. And he really stepped it up a lot on mixing and mastering and really dove into that. I took about 6 months on my end, and then he took about 6 months on his end. And and then he wrote the instrumental tracks towards the end too, and Pestilentia is his song, Dark Matter is his song, but there's a lot of collaboration all through it, but yeah, it works well because now we're on like alternating schedules. So like he just finished up, so now it's my turn to kind of start on something else, and he can take a break, and then we'll switch again.
Oh, okay, that's how you guys work. And again, it's like you said, it's a very involved process. And it's kind of a culmination of what you've worked up to into this
Yep,
point. There's all these different voices, all these different types of singing and types of screaming, types of riffs. It's all enjoyable. And
cool,
usually, like with some concept albums, like that like veer to this direction and that direction, sometimes I feel kind of intimidated, but this one is very cohesive, and you've made it such a manageable task of opening that breathing room of like really knowing what what things are about and what to draw from
great,
each song.
thank you. Yeah, we were kind of worried about that. I mean, halfway through, we were like, "This is a lot. This is a lot to chew on. This is a lot of material." There's three songs that are like 8 minutes long or more, so around there. A lot of the stuff is real dense, and we were like, "Man, I don't know what people are going to think about this. I don't know like how they're going to take this or what." So that's awesome here, and that it works well and it's digestible.
Hmm.
Appreciate that.
Now, branching out of the recording aspect, um, do you see yourselves introducing this album live? Do you find any live shows in the future?
I don't know. Um, I don't know. I think we've been thinking about that here and there. I'm open to it. I think it'd be cool to do maybe like a couple live shows a year or something. Just do a show every 6 months. Put everything into it. Really promote it
Of
and put a lot
course,
of
it's
energy into it.
really thought out, man. That's what like my brother and I both agree. Like it's awesome. Like it needs to be heard at least some of the
Yeah,
songs live, just
yeah,
based on the concept alone.
yeah. I don't have. I'm not real excited about like trying to like get into a van and start touring around and stuff.
No, no.
That's not my thing anymore. But yeah, I mean, I could see performing a couple times a year and making a real big deal out of it. That would be awesome.
Nice. Now, considering what you've done up to this point, what have you learned about yourself, not only as a musician, but as a person?
Geez, I think this stuff kind of good is a good like confidence builder. Actually, in the beginning, I was like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, and now I can pretty much do whatever I want. I mean, I'm not good at like any of these. I'm not a good guitar player. I'm not a good drummer or anything like that, but I can still make it work. I can write a song, and I got everything I need to do that, and that just feels great, and it's it, and I don't know, it gives me purpose. It keeps this kind of fire burning inside of me. Not to be too sappy about it, but yeah, it feels good. It's really important to me, and I'm proud of it. Absolutely.
Lastly, anything you'd like to say to your fans?
Hey, yeah, go check out Deviations. There's a lot of time and energy put into it. There's a lot of love put into it. There's a lot of art in it. We feel really strongly about it that it's worth listening to, and hey, give it a shot. Listen to the whole thing, and let us know what you think. And just I appreciate everything, and thanks for giving it a shot in the first place.
Thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jake. Nice meeting you again.